Hey, what's up, y'all? This video is about the Century Initiative, okay? This is what I think is the most dangerous thing about the Liberals getting in at the end of April, right? So I'm gonna explain to you guys what the Century Initiative is and why it's so dangerous. And then at the very end, I have a hypothesis of something that's going on that's a lot darker than most people even know about, right? So let's get it. So the first clip I have is Mark Carney describing the immigrants that he and the Liberals let come into Canada, right? Notice he admits it is an epic fail because the people who came are students, not professionals. So they are actually a burden on our economy instead of helping the economy. Notice they are students. That part's important.
Conversation in this country more recently has shifted to one issue on the demand side, and in particular, immigration policy. There have been a number of economists musing lately about the relative capacity of the economy to absorb the level of immigration, which is very different than even a few years ago when immigration was seen as the key driver of our economy. Are you worried about the absorptive capacity of the economy at the current level of immigration?
Okay, so the first thing I'd say is that immigration, so new workers coming into Canada, the track record is great. It's it's a testament to Canadians and our institutions that we welcome new immigrants, they get integrated into the economy, they become productive, they become Canadians, and they move forward. Now, there's a difference, and as you know, part of the big surge in people coming into Canada has been students, post-secondary students. And post-secondary students, most of them, what they're supposed to do is study. They might have a job on the side, but they're studying. And so there's a demand for goods and services, housing, the most obvious example, but they're not necessarily increasing yet the productive capacity of the economy. And that's where you get those frictions. So,
All right, so he was just explaining that they moved in all of these immigrants into Canada, right? But he admits that none of them are productive yet, right? And so let's take a look at what these immigrants are actually like, right? These, in the next clip coming up, these are the people that Mark Carney and the Liberals let into Canada, right? And it'll get even worse if they get elected again at the end of April.
We know these are pro-Palestinian protesters acting in solidarity with those in Gaza, acting against NATO, mainly students. A number of protest groups have been named in this. NATO, they say in interviews that they've been doing from the crowd there, they say is complicit in supporting Israel's war on Gaza. This as 300 delegates from NATO countries are in Montreal for meetings for the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. This protest last night, though, turned violent quite quickly. Montreal police say demonstrators were throwing objects at police, lighting vehicles on fire, breaking windows. Around 4:30 p.m., we have a map we can show you just how they started moving through the streets of Montreal. The crowd gathering at Place Émilie Gamelin. Around 5 o'clock, the group met another demonstration near Place des Arts, and then around 6 p.m. they began marching together. And this is when they say that they lit what appeared to be an effigy of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on fire.
That right there is crazy, man. They lit an effigy of Benjamin Netanyahu and set it on fire, right? So these people are Muslim people, right? And the crazy thing about this whole situation, right, is Israel is not innocent in the whole thing, right? And I believe that the leaders in Israel are evil because they haven't turned back to Jesus Christ yet. So they're just as evil as every other nation's leaders, right? But Palestine is definitely not innocent in this. If anybody has provoked this whole situation in Gaza, it's been the Palestinians, right? Because Hamas is the terrorist group there that has been attacking Israel forever, and it's built right into their charter. It says to exterminate Israel, and exterminating Israel is built right into Islam also, if you read the Hadiths and all through the Quran. So these Muslims are protesting about a war that they started. You know what I mean? They start the war and then they protest and get mad when there's retaliation, right? Like it's hypocritical to the core. Anyway, let's keep going.
We're throwing smoke bombs, metal barriers were being torn down and thrown into the road. Fireworks were set off in the street. They were smashing the windows of businesses as well as the windows of the Palais des Congrès, where the NATO meeting is taking place, the convention center there in Montreal. And police say that several police officers were assaulted during these protests. At about 6:40, they used what they call chemical irritants and other techniques to disperse the crowd. Vehicles were then lit on fire. About 7 o'clock, the whole crowd was dispersed. But that is when police said that they made 3 arrests, some for assaulting those police officers, as I mentioned, and others for allegedly obstructing police work. Okay.
Crazy, man. Okay, so Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, they brought in a bunch of untrained people and put them in school. They probably funded them, supported them financially with our tax dollars. And these people are going to get trained and they're going to take our jobs. And then this is what will happen eventually, you guys, if this immigration doesn't stop. These are Muslim people. If there's enough Muslim people get into Canada, eventually they'll be able to vote in a Muslim political party, and this will become a Muslim country and we'll all be under Sharia law. And this country will turn into a dumpster fire, just like every other Sharia compliant country in the world does, right? That's the end game here, you guys. And I'm going to touch more on that in a minute, but I think there's an evil plot going on here. So let's keep going. Anyway, let's see what Pierre Poilievre has to say about this. This is the leader of the Conservative Party. So this guy is the only guy that has a chance to win at the end of April in the federal election. So let's see what he has to say about it.
Good morning. Davis Legree from iPolitics. Earlier this week, Mark Carney added Mark Wiseman to his list of advisors on Canada-U.S. relations. Mark Wiseman was the co-founder of the Century Initiative, a lobby group that wants to bring Canada's population to 100 million people by 2100. Can I get your reaction to that, and what do you think, how do you feel about the idea of rapidly expanding Canada's population to reach 100 million by the end of the century?
Right. So that is the Century Initiative, right? To make Canada's population grow to 100 million by 2100 through immigration, right? That's more than enough Muslims to vote in a Muslim majority and get us under Sharia law, man. Anyway, let's see what Pierre has to say.
Well, it shows that the Liberals would be no different in a fourth term than they were in the first 3. The Liberals destroyed our immigration system in their first 3 terms in power. They followed a radical globalist ideology of massive, uncontrolled population growth that put strain on our housing market, our healthcare, and our job market. Now, corporate elites like Mr. Wiseman and Mr. Carney loved it because it drives wages down. It takes jobs away from our workers in numbers that we can't replace by growth in the job market. But it's terrible for our working class. And by bringing on Mr. Wiseman, it shows that Mark Carney supports the Liberal Century Initiative to nearly triple our population to 100 million people. We voted against the Century Initiative in the House of Commons, and the Liberals voted for the Century Initiative unanimously. That is the radical Liberal agenda on immigration. We will get back to moderate, reasonable levels of immigration. Our country was built by common sense immigration, but we need to ensure we grow the housing supply, our health care, and our jobs faster than we grow our population. And so I will reject the Century Initiative and get back to common sense immigration that brings people to Canada in numbers that we can hire, that we can house, and that we can care for. That was the best immigration system in the world, and we're going to bring it home again.
And that's what we need. Cheers to that, Pierre. I like what he said there, man. That's what Canada needs, right? But here's what I think is actually going on behind the scenes, you guys. And this is the dark conspiracy that I was talking about, right? I believe that Islam is being spread and promoted and funded by the elite, right? In order to cause death, destruction, enslavement, and to exterminate Christianity, right? And I just want you guys to think about this. Think about this, you guys. if you wonder why politicians push Islam, if you wonder why the mainstream media pushes Islam, if you wonder why it seems like Islam is funded by all this money, and Christianity is the opposite of that. Christianity is silenced by the mainstream media. Christianity is like pushed out of freedom of speech. You know what I mean? Christians never have freedom of speech and all this stuff. Think about this, you guys. I want you guys to look into this. Look into the ties between Islam and Freemasonry, right? If you realize that the elite people running this world are Freemasons, and that Freemasonry is tied to Islam, then all of this stuff will start to make sense. It'll start to make sense why Islam is funded financially by so many rich people, right? And they have all this financial backing, right? It'll start to make sense why they have the mainstream media behind them, silencing Christians and promoting Islam. It'll make sense why the politicians are silencing Christians and promoting Islam. Everything starts to make sense when you understand the ties between Islam and Freemasonry. And then you understand that most of the politicians and world leaders are Freemasons. They serve Satan. And Satan wants to exterminate the truth. He wants to exterminate Christianity. He wants to take away your freedom of speech and cause as much death and destruction as possible. And that's what Islam was designed for. So that's my hypothesis, you guys. I think if you look into that, everything will start making a lot more sense. I love you guys. God bless you guys. I'm out.